Hey guys, this is Modelman and welcome to another episode of Modelman Animation. In my FAQ playlist, I answer the questions that you ask in the comment section of my tutorials. Today we're gonna answer this question. In this video, I'm gonna review the latest version of Moho 14.1. which was released a few days ago. I'm gonna show you the new features and improvements. Additionally, I address the fixed bugs that have been implemented. I'm also gonna compare it with Moho 14.0 and tell you my honest opinion about whether Moho 14.1 is worth it or not. So without further ado, let's get started. First, I'm gonna talk about how you can update your Moho into Moho 14.1. If you wanna update your Moho to Moho 14.1, first make sure you're connected to the internet, then you go to Help and click on Check for Updates, and Moho will automatically find the latest version. After that, you can install it. Or you can go to this link and download the latest version from the Moho's official website. Currently, Moho is available for both Windows and Mac. After downloading the file, you double click on it to open it. Then you choose Accept the agreement. After that, you click on Next, choose an address to install and click on Next. And then you hit Next again and you click on Install. After that, you have to wait for 40 seconds to 5 minutes. And then your Moho will be ready to open. You just have to click on Next and then Finish. Moho 14.1 opens as fast as previous versions. So you're not gonna face a problem like low speed when you wanna open it. So this is how you can update your Moho to Moho 14.1. Now let's talk about improvements. The first improvement is added an option to show or hide handles in the Curvature tool. When you use the Curvature tool in Moho 14.0, you can hold down the control and click on somewhere to deselect the points, and after that you'll see the handles and you can adjust them if you want. And as you can see, there is no option to hide the handles while the Curvature tool is selected. However, in Moho 14.1, when you select the Curvature tool and hold down the control and deselect the points, you'll have the ability to show the handles or hide them using this new option up here. It helps you when your workspace is very busy and full of handles. When your handles are hidden, you still can drag on a point to change its curvature, or hold down the control and drag to select multiple points and then drag to the left or right to change the curvature of all of them. The next option is called Support for the Shaded and Halo Shape effects in the editing mode. In Moho 14.0, whenever you select a shape and give it a shaded effect, you won't be able to see it unless you select the other layers. And we can say the same thing about halo effect. So if I give this shape a halo effect, you won't be able to see it unless you select another layer. But in Moho 14.1, you can see the result of your shaded effect even before you apply it on your shape. And we also have a similar update for halo effect. There is no weird rule like selecting other layers. You can clearly see the changes as you're changing the values. This is a significant update for this version. The next improvement is called Live Project Settings Pixelation Effect. Here in Moho 14.0, I created an animation from the popular game Super Mario. And as you can see, there is no pixelation. I designed everything with a high quality. And now if I go to File and then Project Settings, you'll see an option called Pixelation. If I type something like 8 and then click on OK, I won't be able to see the pixelation effect in real time. In order to see the effect, I have to render it using Ctrl+R. We also have another option to apply the pixelation effect. Before I show you how to use it, first I go to Project Settings and set the value of pixelation to 0. Then if you double click on a layer, by typing a value here, you can apply the pixelation effect on one single layer individually. But again, we can't see this effect in Moho 14.0 unless we render it by hitting Ctrl+R. Now we want to test the same thing in Moho 14.1. Let's start with Mario layer. We type a value for its pixelation and then click on OK to check if the pixelation effect in layer settings window works in this version or not. But as you can see, it doesn't work. We only can see it in our render. And now before we check the option in Project Settings window, let me type 0 for the pixelation of this layer, and then I go to Project Settings window and type 6 for the pixelation of the whole project. And then I click on OK, and now we have that nostalgic 80s vibe in real time. Not only for a single frame, but also when you play your animation. Note that if you scroll up or down to zoom in or out, it seems like the value of your pixelation is changing. Also, there is a big difference between what you see and you render. For example, if I go to File and then Project Settings and set the value of my pixelation to 8 and then click on OK, although the result would be terrible in our workspace, if I hit Ctrl R, you can see that the actual result is pretty good. So by default, you will have more pixelation in your workspace than your render. Also in Moho 14.1, how you see the pixelation effect in your workspace depends on the resolution of your project as well. If you choose a higher resolution for your project, you will have less pixelation in your workspace. So to see the pixelation better, it's important to choose your resolution before applying the pixelation effect. The next improvement is called Fixed Sum Smart Bone Evaluation Box. To create your smart bone, you just right-click on a group and choose Convert to Bone. Then you hit the A key, or from the Tools window, you click on Add Bone Tool. After that, you drag to draw a bone. And from up here, you can type a name for it. Next, you hit the B key, or from the Tools window, you click on Select Bone Tool. And then you check Show Label, so you can see the name of your bone next to it. After that, you can hit the S key, or from the Tools window, you click on Bone Strength Tool. This bone has now effect on the shapes in this area. We want to type 0 for it, so it won't have any direct effect on the shapes. Then we go back to Select Bone Tool and click on Bone Constraints, and I check Angle Constraints. This option will limit the angle of the selected bone to be between these two numbers. You can see the limits on both sides, and I want it to be between -90 degrees and 0. These are my favorite numbers, but you can type anything you want. Then you go to Windows and then choose Action. If this window is annoying for you, you can dock it if you want. To do that, you go to Window, Docking, and then Action. And from now on, you can find the action window on the right side of your screen. To create your smart bone, make sure your group is selected, make sure your bone is selected, and make sure the selected bone tool is selected, and then you click on New Action, and then make sure the name you see is the same as the name of your bone and click on OK. The timeline will be light blue, meaning that instead of the main timeline, now we are on the action timeline, and then we go to a frame like 48, and then we choose Transform Bone tool, and tell Moho that whenever we rotate this bone, in the lips layer, the points of lips, wherever they are, should move this much to this direction. Then I hit the home key on my keyboard to reset my view, and then I double click on the main line to go back to the main timeline, and then we select our bone group, and then go to a frame other than 0, and then I choose Transform Bone tool and rotate my bone to make the character smile. Then if I go back to frame 0 and play the animation, you can see the final result. So using a smart bone, you can tell Moho when you rotate a bone how the position of the points and the position and the rotation of the layers should be. Despite the amazing advantages that this feature has, in the past the users of Moho 14.0 and earlier versions complained about the problems with showing the name of the smartphone in action window or the weird behaviors of a smartphone when you rotate it. However, it seems that we don't have those bugs anymore in Moho 14.1. The next improvement is called Improvements to Preview Animation, Increased Resolution, and Hide the Project Output Border. Here in Moho 14.0 I have an animation, let me play it for you. This character is called Harley Quinn. I made it based on a character with the same name from the animated series Harley Quinn. And let's say we want to quickly render this project and watch it as a video. So you go to File, and then from here you can click on Preview Animation, or you can use its shortcut, Ctrl-Shift-R. If you choose this option, Moho quickly render your project from your workspace, and then it will be played in your default player. This time I'm gonna do the same thing but in Moho 14.1. So we click on Preview Animation and wait for it to render our project, and then we can watch it. If we compare both preview animations with each other, you might say there is no difference. So instead of comparing them side by side, I decided to put one of them on the other one. Did you see that? What? You still can't see any difference? No problem, let me zoom in. Here is the preview animation of Moho 14.0, and this one is the preview animation of Moho 14.1. I think the resolution has not been changed, but I believe that there was a problem with the scale of the render that has been fixed in this version, because we can see some slight changes in the x-axis. So this is what increased resolution means. And if you take a closer look at the preview animation of Moho 14.0, you can see that the project output border is visible, However, in the preview animation of Moho 14.1, it's hidden. It's a very good improvement actually, because it makes your preview animations closer to your final render. The next improvement is called improvements to Modeless dialog support for Lua scripts. When you want to create a window for a software, we have two types of windows. The first one is called modal dialog box or modal window. For example, this window is modal because it prevents us from working with the software unless we choose cancel or OK. On the other hand, we have modeless dialog box or modeless window. This window allows us to work with the other parts of the software while the window is open. So layer settings window is an example of being modeless. So if you're using Moho 14.1, you should know that Moho 14.1 has a better support for these types of windows. To write your own script with a modeless dialog, you can go to this link and search for the word modeless to find the latest updates and latest scripts for modeless dialog box. And then you can decide whether you want it for your script or not. Next, we have improvements to image quality in the editing view. Here in Moho 14.0, I imported an image, and also I did the same thing in Moho 14.1. It's time to compare them side by side. As you can see, Moho 14.0 has some problems with showing the images, but the images in the editing view are cleaner in Moho 14.1. To be honest, I really like these slight changes because now we can see the actual image instead of having a version of it with a lower quality. The next improvement is called if only a single document is open, the window title bar will reflect if that document hasn't been saved. Here in Moho 14.1 we have a new document, and on the top left corner of the screen you can see the name of it. If you start working with the software, after doing a few actions, a star will appear on the top left corner of the screen next to the name of your document, meaning that these new changes haven't been saved. It's actually a kind of warning to save your project, but as soon as you save your document, the star will be gone. So if you see a star next to the name of your document, it means that you have done some actions that haven't been saved. Also, you should know that the star is only for the current document, not the documents that are not selected. By the way, if your Moho crashes, you can go to help and show autosave files, and then you will have access to autosaves and backups. Actually, Moho automatically save your project every 30 seconds into this address, but under one condition, and that is in Edit, Preferences, and then Document tab, you have to check autosave for crash recovery and then click on OK. Also, if as soon as you open your Moho it crashes, you can use this software that I made called Moho Resetter and then reset your Moho to fix the problem. It is only 3 megabytes and it's for free. The next improvement is called Fix the Bug with Subframe Motion Blur and Bone Dynamics. Here in Moho 14.0, I draw a rectangle and then using Select Points tool, I select these 2 points and then click on Split. After that, I do the same thing with the other 2 points to put a point between them. Then I group this layer and then I convert it to a bone group. And then using Add Bone tool, I draw 2 bones, one from the bottom to the center of the rectangle and one from the center to the top. While the top bone is selected, I select the Select Bone tool and go to Bone Constraints, and then I check Angle and click on Close. Next, I select the lower bone and go to a frame other than 0, and using Transform Bone tool, I rotate it, and then I have to make sure in Layer Settings window, Motion Blur on and Subframe Motion Blur are checked. And now let me play this animation for you. We have an animation like this, but since we can't see the motion blur in the editing view, to see it, we have to hit Ctrl R to render it. Now it's time to do the same thing in Moho 14.1. If I try to render the same project in Moho 14.1, we'll have a result like this. This is what we want. This is a real motion blur, not the one that we had in Moho 14.0. If we compare both renders side by side, you can clearly see the bug in Moho 14.0. And the good news is we don't have the problem in Moho 14.1. The next improvement is called Fixed Certain Glitches with Bezier handles with very small near zero length handles. So for example, here in Moho 14.1, I'm gonna scroll up to zoom in and drag on a point to the left to decrease the value of its curvature. Now if we rotate the handles, we can see some glitches. So it seems they haven't fixed anything. We also had another type of glitch actually. Let me test that one. Here I zoom on a line, and as you can see, if I rotate these small handles, nothing's gonna happen. But if I make these handles longer a bit, and then I start to rotate them, you can see that there are some glitches. You see them? And note that this is Moho 14.1, not Moho 14.0. So what is the improvement? I can't see it. Do you know the answer? Let me know in the comment section. The next improvement is called fixed some render issues with the add blending mode. First, I'm gonna show you what blend mode is. To begin, I create a new layer and select the draw shape tool and choose a color, and then I draw a rectangle that covers my entire output and move this layer to the top of all layers. To blend the color of my rectangle with the color of the layers below it, I just have to right click on it and go to blend mode and choose one of these blend modes. Normal means no blending, and the other options are for blending the color of the rectangle with the layers below it. I'll talk about how to use them in another video later. But just by testing blend modes and changing the color of your rectangle, you can create interesting effects. Also, you can mask your rectangle to apply your blend mode on a specific part of your animation. And if you have a liquid shape in a layer, using mask you can apply your blend mode on that liquid shape as well. So you just have to use your own creativity. So how has add blend mode changed? To find the answer in Moho 14.0, I draw a yellow circle on the left, then I create a new layer and choose a blue color, and I draw a blue circle on the right. After that, I select the layer of the yellow circle, and using the select shape tool, I select the yellow circle and give it a gradient effect. To make this gradient transparent, I check allow transparency, then I choose the right color, and then I drag on the eyedropper and release it on the left color. After that, I double click on the right color and make it transparent, and then click on OK, and again I click on OK to apply the gradient. Let me click on here to deselect my shape, and then I drag on this point to change the angle of my gradient, so it will be from left to right, and then I right click on the layer of the blue circle, and as you can see, the name of this blend mode is now Linear Dodge Add, so I select it. And before I render it, let me explain what we've done. In this example, the blend mode of the layer at the bottom is normal, and it has a shape with a transparent gradient, and the blend mode of the layer on top is Linear Dodge Add, and its shape doesn't have any effect. Now I want to render it in Moho 14.0. So we have something like this. It's time to test it in Moho 14.1. Here I opened the same project in Moho 14.1. As you can see, the Linear Dodge Add blend mode has been renamed to Add, and if I render the same project, we'll have something like this. It's time to compare them side by side. As you can see, when you use Linear Dodge Add blend mode on a layer in Moho 14.0, if you have a shape with a transparent gradient at the back of that layer, the Linear Dodge Add blend mode doesn't work very well. Let me explain why. In fact, every shape has a series of pixels, and every pixel has a color. And every color can be represented as 3 values: red, green, and blue. When you use Linear Dodge Add, the RGB values of your layer will be added to RGB values of the layers below it. And you know that the closer we get to 255, the closer we get to white. And that's why this area should be brighter, which is not. So actually in Moho 14.0 and previous versions, when you have a shape with a transparent gradient at the back of a layer with Linear Dodge Add blend mode, the result that you see in your render is wrong, because it doesn't make this area brighter. However, in Moho 14.1 we don't have this problem, and instead of calling this blend mode Linear Dodge Add, we just call it Add. Also, if you look closer, you can see the difference between strokes as well. And you might say it's not a really big update, but you'll know what I know when you need to apply an Add blend mode on hundreds of layers, including a shape with a transparent gradient. So, as I said, they changed the name of this blend mode from Linear Dodge Add to Add. Also, this new blend mode works on transparent gradients as well. But these changes that they made has brought a new problem. The problem is, if you have a Photoshop file that has a layer with Linear Dodge Add blend mode, although if you import it into Moho 14.0, the result of Linear Dodge Add will be similar to what you have in Photoshop, in Moho 14.1, Add blend mode will ruin it, so you won't have the same result. That's why we have this new improvement for Moho 14.1. New layer blend mode called PSD Linear Dodge Add. for better compatibility with Photoshop. To test it, first we have to create a Photoshop file. Alright, here in Photoshop I'm gonna choose the brush tool and then I create a new layer. Then I click to draw a circle inside this layer. Then in another layer I choose the blue color and draw a blue circle. After that I go to the previous layer and then I make a mask for it. Next I press left click and hold it on the paint bucket tool and then I release it on the gradient tool to select it. Then I click on here to go to gradient editor. And then I have to make sure this one is black, this one is 100%, this one is black, and this one is 0%. Now that the gradient is ready, we just have to drag from the right side of the yellow circle to the left side of it. And then I right click on the mask and apply it to its layer. After that, I select the top layer and change its blend mode to Linear Dodge Add. And since we don't need the background layer, we just select it and then delete it. And then we choose yes. And now this project is ready to be tested in Moho. We just need to save it. So we go to File, Save, and choose a name for it, and then click on Save. And finally, we click on OK. Let's test it in Moho. Here in Moho 14.0, I go to File, Import, and then General Import. And then I select my Photoshop file and click on Open and then Individually. Now if I right click on the layer of the yellow circle and go to its blend mode, you can see that Moho 14.0 has already recognized its blend mode. So I'm gonna hit Ctrl R to show you the result of render. It will be something like this. And now let's test it in Moho 14.1. Here in Moho 14.1, before I import the Photoshop file, I want you to see that these are the only blend modes that we have. We don't have anything like PSD Linear Dodge Add. Also you can see that instead of Linear Dodge Add, we just have Add. And not only for vector layers, but also if you try to import an image into your Moho project and go to its blend mode, you're not gonna find any option like PSD Linear Dodge Add. Let me delete this image layer. Now it's time to test our Photoshop file. So we go to File, Import, and then General Import. Then we select the file and click on Open and then Individually. Let me check the blend mode of the top layer. In fact, in Moho 14.1, for the layers that you import from Photoshop, there will be a new blend mode called PSD Linear Dodge Add. And as you can see, Moho has already recognized it and set the blend mode of this layer to PSD Linear Dodge Add. And although the blend mode of the other layer is normal, just because it's a Photoshop layer, we still have the chance to change it to PSD Linear Dodge Add. But I'm not gonna do that, because I'm gonna test this project with its default blend modes. So let's hit Ctrl R and see what will happen. It's like the result that we had from Moho 14.0. But what if we change the blend mode of the top layer to Add? Let's see, we go to blend mode and then choose Add, and we hit Ctrl R. See, when we use Add blend mode on a Photoshop layer that has a shape with gradient at the back of itself, the render will be broken. That's why they needed to add another blend mode in Moho 14.1 called PSD Linear Dodge Add to fix this problem. It's time to compare the renders. Here you can see that if you want to render a Photoshop file that has a layer with Linear Dodge Add blend mode and a layer with transparent gradient at the back of it, to get the correct result in Moho 14.0 you should use Linear Dodge Add blend mode, whereas in Moho 14.1 you should use PSD Linear Dodge Add blend mode. Because if you use Add blend mode, the render will be broken. Note that I'm just showing you the difference here, but by default Moho always uses the correct blend mode, unless you change it by yourself. Also, you know that in Photoshop there are many ways to create a gradient. For example, if instead of using mask, we use ellipse tool to create gradient, you might see a different result. Actually, the result for Linear Dodge Add in Moho 14.0 will be similar to PSD Linear Dodge Add in Moho 14.1. But if you look closer to Add blend mode, you can see that we have some problem with it. But thanks to this new blend mode PSD Linear Dodge Add, we can avoid it in Moho 14.1. And before I talk about the next improvement, let me tell you a summary about how the developers of Moho updated the blend modes in Moho 14.1. Actually, in Moho 14.0 and the versions before it, we had a blend mode called Linear Dodge Add. They realized that there was a bug as I showed you the image with rendering a layer with Linear Dodge Add blend mode when there is a vector shape with transparent gradient at the back of it. They decided to improve the blend mode to prevent the bug. So they updated the Linear Dodge Add blend mode in Moho 14.1 and called it Add blend mode. and this new blend mode fixed the bug that I mentioned. However, add blend mode has a new bug as I showed you with blending images when we have an image with a transparent gradient at the back of our layer, and usually when you want to import an image, it's a Photoshop file. So again, they decided to add a new blend mode only for when you import a Photoshop file to fix that bug. Yeah, it's complicated, but it makes sense, yeah? Welcome to the world of programmers. The next update is called Fixed Problems with Previewing Transparent Gradients. Here in Moho 14.0, I apply a gradient on a shape and then make it transparent, and then I select the right color, drag on the eyedropper and release it on the left color. And to make the right color transparent, I'm gonna click on this color, reduce this alpha and click on OK, and then again OK. After that, I'm gonna drag on this point and move it to here to limit the gradient to be inside the shape. And let me turn off the checker selection so I can see the shape better. And as you can see in Moho 14.0, for linear gradient, we have no problem. And if I choose radial gradient, I can still see it in my editing view. But if I choose reflected or angle, we won't be able to see the result in the editing view. Let's see if the problem is fixed in Moho 14.1. Here in Moho 14.1, in the editing view, we can see the linear gradient, the radial gradient, the reflected gradient, and the angle gradient. So yes, they fixed the problem. The last improvement is called Fixes to Eyedropper tool. Here in Moho 14.0, using the Select Shape tool, I'm gonna select this shape, and then using Eyedropper tool, I select this shape to apply the style of it to my selected shape. So when you want to pick a style in Moho 14.0 using Eyedropper tool, it works. However, when I'm using Eyedropper tool, if I hold down the control and drag to copy a color, the color that we see around the tool as a circle will be wrong. It's time to test it in Moho 14.1. Here in Moho 14.1, using Eyedropper tool, I'm gonna hold down the control and drag, and the color that we see as a circle around the mouse is correct. So let's say we copy a color by releasing the click on it, and then while a shape is selected, I click on the color of fill, and then I hit Ctrl V to paste that color. And if I deselect the shape, you can see that it works. So they fixed the bug. Now you can copy the colors easily in Moho 14.1. So these 14 improvements that I told you have been officially announced. But there are some other improvements for Moho 14.1. Actually, last month I released a video on my channel. It was a side-by-side comparison between Moho 13.5 and Moho 14.0. And throughout the video, I mentioned some bugs in Moho 14.0. And guess what? Moho developers watched my video and they told me that they were working on those bugs. Let's see if they actually fixed them or not. The first bug was in Moho 14.0, if you go to help and then welcome screen and then you click on introductory tutorial, an error will show up. However, in Moho 14.1, if you go to help and then welcome screen and then you click on introductory tutorial, a link will open for you, which is the link of Moho 14 tutorial manual. So they fixed it. The next problem was in Moho 14.0, when you use add point tool, if you click and then hit Ctrl Z, the next time that you click, Lua console will show up, meaning that there is a problem with the tool. However, in Moho 14.1, if you click and then hit Ctrl Z, you can click again and draw. Again, you can hit Ctrl Z if you want, and then click to draw, or hit Ctrl Z if you want. There is no limit. They fixed the problem. The next problem was in Moho 14.0, if you go to File, Import, Library, Characters, Moho 13.5, and then click on Night Boy, and then click on OK to import it into your project, after a few seconds, your Moho will crash. Interestingly, if you try to do the same thing in Moho 14.1, Moho won't crash. See how I can move the playhead? So they fixed this problem as well. The next problem was in Moho 14.0, when you go to edit and then preferences, if you change the language of your Moho to Russian and click on OK and close the program, the next time that you open it, although when you open it everything seemed to be fine, if you create a new document after a few seconds your Moho will crash. But do we have the same problem in Moho 14.1? Let's see, we close it and then open it again, and after that all we have to do is that we should create a new document. So we click on here and then here, and you can see that the problem is gone. Honestly, I can't believe they fixed all of these bugs in just one update. As you can see, Moho 14.1 has gotten closer to a real-time experience so that we don't need to rely on rendering the project every once in a while. And it's definitely worth it to buy and install. By the way, you should know Moho offers a 40% discount until November 30th if you want to buy it. That's it guys. If you have any question, you can ask me in the comment section. I choose the best ones for this playlist and I answer them in a video like this. I'll be glad if you like and share, subscribe for more videos, and see you in the next episode.